ladies and gentlemen, I have a guest that's going to be coming in the studio with me. Pete.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a guest in the studio with me. My partner in crime, back on the set again with me one more time, Mr. Paul Cook Edwards. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we want to talk about a few things in this podcast as we matriculate through this last day of, well, traditionally it's the last day, but we know this is a leap year. So in February, this is a leap year, so February will go to the 29th day today. But before we get out of this 28th day, I want to do a Black History poem. So I want to do a Black History poem for all of those who are out there. Check this out. This piece is entitled Brought from Africa. Brought from Africa is a passenger on a slave ship. We spent weeks in the beast, 300 deep, shackled and whipped on a trip that we were forced to go on. All alone, away from home, sick and cold to the bone, destination unknown now. It wasn't long before it was known that life as we knew it was gone. See, soon as that ship stopped, we got led by the whip to the auction block, no longer considered a man, but something less than, bound by shackles and chains, took away our heritage and gave us a new name now. I can't explain why we didn't go insane from all the things they used to do. Used us and abused us for 400 years, but still we stood strong through all the long years on the plantation, starvation, annihilation of generation, segregation, discrimination, and violations trying to kill our aspiration. But still we built this nation on blood, sweat, and tears. And if you don't believe, then please look back over the years, or better yet, let me give you an education on some of the powerful Black people who helped build this nation, giving inspiration. So let's stand in celebration of those who rose to fight despite their situation. Marcus Garvey was a soldier from his heart. He was proud to be Black. Started a movement to take us back to Africa as passengers on his steamships. No more shackles, no more chains, and no more whips. He once said, a people without knowledge of his past is like a tree without roots. Dead. Benjamin Banneker wasn't an amateur, that's for real. He once built a clock that ran without stop for almost 50 years. And not to mention, he laid out the plans for Washington, D.C. and Booker T. Washington was a man with ambition. He knew that education was the key to help him rise from poverty to be the head at the Institute of Tuskegee. George Carver kept people from starving because he came up with 300 ways to use the peanut. That's right, I did not stutter. If it wasn't for him, there would be no Peter Pan peanut butter. I have a dream. Those are the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, the greatest preacher, pastor, poet, writer, civil rights fighter this world has ever seen. So Black people band together, Black people stand together, and never, ever forget the dream. Black people, remember, Black history isn't confined to 1 month. I need you to understand that for people like us to be confined to 1 month is an atrocity and a detriment to the people who came before us. You got to understand where we came from. How can you pack all of these years of history into 28 days? Traditionally, 28 days. This year is a leap year. But how can we do that? We can't. We find ourselves at a disadvantage more often than not. We find ourselves as one of the greatest people on the face of this earth, now at the bottom of the totem pole or the bottom rung on the ladder. Why is that? It doesn't make sense. We are the people who created language as we know it today. We are those people in this form and fashion that they call hieroglyphics. See, because we are the Egyptians who wrote in the pyramids, who built the pyramids, who created this form of language. We're the same people who did that. Now you find in this country, the greater majority of the individuals who do not understand language or who do not have a literary or literate perspective are people like us. That's unfortunate. that we are the inventors of language, and now we are some of the most illiterate on the planet. Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. So we find ourselves here today, man, at Talk Back, and we want to talk about a few things, man, in this 28th day of February that impacts Black people. And what I want to talk about is how much the young people are being impacted, our youth. And we want to talk about youth incarceration. I have my brother on here again, my partner in crime, Mr. Paul Cook Edwards, out of the city of New York, the borough of Brooklyn. I really appreciate you, my brother, and I thank you for being on the show with us today.
I appreciate being on the show with you once again. We can consider this a reunion, and I think it is imperative that we talk about the state of our youth.
Yeah.
Their mental health.
Yeah.
And these obstacles.
Yeah. It's sad. Now, I read an article called from an article called Black Disparity. It says Black American youth are 4.7 times more likely to be detained or arrested than any other ethnic group in this country. And we're talking about in these contemporary times. That seems kind of bizarre to think about, where we've matriculated from slavery to this technological age where all of these Black people are doing fabulously in this country, but yet still Black American youth are being arrested 4 times more often than their white counterparts. How does that make sense? It doesn't. What is the cause of it? Is it the color of their skin? Is it because they are Black? I'm trying to figure this out simply because I want to, ease my mind or bring some peace into my spirit about this country. Because we think about a country that we thought had grown to such a degree that, we had a Black president. That's growth. Ladies and gentlemen, that's growth if you don't know it. But unfortunately, although things seem to have changed, things remain the same. So how is it that this is possible?
So I pose a question to you. I pose a question to everyone, actually. The reason why is, does it pertain to these numbers that you just quoted on incarceration with our youth? I think that we also have to look at, it seems to be more of a, we understand historically what Black people in America have gone through, and we know that it's probably always impacted the youth, but maybe in some capacity we've tried to protect our children, There was a story how a woman in slavery, they would protect the children, they would protect their children from maybe being sold. When their child was referred to as such a great worker in the field, they would say, "No, master, he's not a great worker. He's not adequate. He's not enough." And that would be something to maybe pay the slave masters for maybe taking that child and sending him somewhere else because he's a commodity. But my thing is, it's becoming harder and harder for us to protect our children. So in addition to this incarceration statistic, the suicide rate amongst our children of color is the highest it's ever been.
Yeah. So
there is a war on Black children in the schools, the racism and how teachers treat them, and as you just mentioned with incarceration, and now the suicide rate is the highest it's ever been. What do we do now when this war, which we have fought as adults generationally now, they're taking it to the children? How is this happening? Why is this happening?
It's why that would be the question. Why is it happening? Especially when you can see that we have more African Americans who are in political positions. We have more African Americans, and I'm speaking historically. You have more African Americans who are in political positions of power. You have more African Americans who are in the 1 percentile when it comes to wealth and economics. You have more African Americans who are prominent in this country versus years ago historically. But yet we find out, and I think there's a disconnect between those and the common individual again. You have all of these, look at all the great actors we have, who not just won Academy Awards, but Black actors who impact this country, who are recognizable all over this world. And you have to ask yourself, what have they done for the communities that are suffering the greatest impact due to judicial injustice, economic depravity, and all of these things? What are they doing? Now, I hear about them giving to all of these colleges and all of these universities, and they building schools. I hear about all of that, but how many of them are building community centers in some of these war-torn cities that they came from? And when I say war-torn, I'm talking about there are underground wars that are taking place all the time. Bloods against Crips. Hey, your territory, my territory. I don't like your neighborhood, you don't like my neighborhood, and we killing each other out here. How many of them have truly invested back into their community? How many politicians have truly fought for legislation that will curb the number of individuals or youth specifically that are being arrested? Black youth. How many of them have done that? We don't find very many that does that, because what they do is they try to walk between the lines now. Just think about these brothers and sisters who've made it to the National Football League, or to the National Basketball Association, to the Major League Baseball Association. You think about all of these people. These brothers and sisters now walk between the line, where they don't want to offend those people who are paying their salary, and because if they speak out against some things, they have to be very careful, or they find themselves in the category of Kaepernick, and that's unfortunate.
So this is the question I pose. Are they truly free? You would like to think that because of the high status they have and the salaries that they're being paid, that with economic freedom comes a certain level of personal freedom. Are they really free? They should be free, but their minds are still in chains. Yeah. And the other thing is, as you said, they're giving their monies back to these institutions that are perpetuating the oppression that we are experiencing and have been experiencing. They're not taking their money, as you stated, Brother Jones, and we see it in the streets. Whether it's a gym, whether it's employing people, whether it's a community center, we don't see them taking that money. I bet you could go to Detroit, New York, LA, and you don't see, maybe in very minimal cases, where you see this money, the millions of dollars that these athletes are making. Did you see it on the ground, in the neighborhood? So if they're giving their money to these high established institutions, they, in essence, are perpetuating the institutions that are still oppressive. And they are not taking the money, and they're recycling the money and not putting it in new areas and new places, especially the grassroots organizations or in the streets where we can visibly see it and where change needs to take place.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I see this same article that I quoted from earlier. It says Black youth placement, and that's in detention centers, being arrested and held, or in juvenile facilities. It says the rate at which they're being detained is 228 per 100,000. Now, the average white youth placement rate is only 49 per 100,000. So out of 100,000 people, every 100,000 people, at least 228 Black youth in that population is being arrested. Now, you got to understand the population as far as different categories. White population has a large population. Black population, we're 14.3% of the entire population of the United States. So in thinking about that, when you look at 228 Black youth per 100,000 being arrested versus 49 per 100,000 white youth being arrested. That's almost like astronomical. That's like an almost astronomical number when you give the sheer size or population of the white community. It's like almost bizarre that you would think that, hey man, they are attacking our black kids. You know, I do some work, man, and for an entity that regulates kids, the Juvenile Justice Center. Just think about the Juvenile Justice Center for a minute. And the civil citation program. They provide civil citations, which can be a good program. The civil citation can be a good mediator for kids who get arrested for the first time. However, it's the district attorney that makes the final decision on whether these youth can come off of this civil citation and matriculate back into society as they've always done without any repercussions. They make that decision. After they go through the civil citation program, then their records are then sent or forwarded to the district attorney's office. District attorney, they'll in turn, if they've completed the program, that's a checkoff. They'll look back into the student's records and find out if they have missed any days of school or had any other disciplinary actions taken against them at school before they decide whether or not they're going to release that child. Now check this out. The only thing that can get them into a civil citation program is that they break the law. You have to commit a crime. There has to be a statute violation. Not just you've had a fight at school, they have to deem that fight a statute violation in order for you to get in the civil citation program. And so when you're trying to get out of the program, you do not have to have a statute violation. Listen to me. You do not have to have a statute violation in order to be violated from that program. So when they take a final look at those kids' records, school attendance, any disciplinary actions, whether it's ISS, OSS, ILR, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, all of that stuff, if it's any of that, okay, it's a violation, automatic. But what is confusing is that it only takes, so it has to be a law violation in order to get in a program, but once you're in it, you can violate it without having a law violation. That's the first problem. The second problem is they look at the attendance of the student and they determine based on the attendance of the student whether that child will be violated or not. So, example, I got a child in my program, just say for instance, they've been in here for 90 days. They missed 6 days of school in that 90 days. 6 days of school in that 90 days. They didn't have an excuse for those 6 days. Child was sick, mother didn't take him to the doctor, just took care of him at home, didn't have an excuse. You're talking about 6 days now. The department will then in turn violate that child. Not the department, the district attorney, because I'm speaking of the district attorney, not just the Department of Juvenile Justice, but the district attorney. They will in turn violate that child for 6 days of school. They don't count just the 6 days. They count all the class period the child missed. If that child is in middle school or high school, that child has up to 8 classes a day. Up to 8 classes a day. They could range. They could be 6. They could be 7. It just depends on what grade level that child is at and where they are in their GPA or credits that they need. So if you got an average of 7 classes in a day, you got 5 days a week, that's 35 periods. So if a child has missed 6 days, that's 40 periods. So they'll look at the 40 periods and say, hey man, that's an astronomical amount of time. But in reality, they've only missed 6 days over the course of 3 months. Over the course of 3 months. Now, I know a lot of people might think, well, they shouldn't have missed any day. But at the same time, you don't know situations and circumstances.
Correct.
We got to understand situations and circumstances. We got to understand there could be reasons why the child wasn't in school. Like this child was sick. They weren't sick to the degree they had to go to the doctor, but they may have had a stomach virus 2 or 3 days, or they may have had a cold, not severe, but in respects to all the other students, they want to send that child to school, but did not take them to the doctor or anything and get an excuse. And I think that's crazy.
One size fits all,
Yeah. And that gives them more leeway to put more youth behind bars, which is crazy.
So what does that say to me? It says to me that there's an engineering process that's taking place in order to put more youth behind bars.
I'm disgusted at our system and how our system operates. And I'm talking about the judicial system holistically. When you look at it and you think about all of the arrests that are made and kids who are placed, you're talking about kids who look like the melting pot that this country are. 42% of those, though, are Black. Not saying you don't have whites, Hispanics, Latinos, Asians, and all that. That's what I'm saying. They look like the melting pot of this country or the makeup of this country, but yet still disproportionately Black children are affected. You're talking about 42% of the youth who are currently incarcerated are Black. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, is there something wrong? Maybe there is. How about mental health issues? As you quoted earlier, Brother Paul, we have a high suicide rate amongst Black youth now.
It's ever for Black children, for children of color.
Yeah. Now we're thinking about that, and so if at some time the system would take the time to look at these youth and say, okay, incarceration may not be the answer for this child. Maybe it's some sort of mental health treatment, because Blacks more often than not who come from poverty-stricken communities face trauma almost on a daily basis. Face some sort of trauma almost on a daily basis.
If you look at, as it pertains to ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, our children coming from those communities have a high ACEs score, and therefore those things should be taken into consideration as it pertains to their behavior and what's taking place, the disorganization within their family unit. Yeah.
I think all of it should be looked at, because mental health is a big component in this country. I ain't gonna just say in the Black community, but in this country. And so we have to take the time out to delve into the mental issues or mental health issues that are associated with these youth who are coming in, whether it's a mental illness or it's just mental health problems that are associated with them being or living in a poverty-stricken area. Mental health issues that are strictly just associated with them living in a household with an addicted parent. The traumas that they face throughout just dealing with these particular situations. And I think that we may get a greater resolve, because to incarcerate them does not change their trajectory. Meaning it does not, once you start to incarcerate a child, man, you put them on a collision course with higher or greater incarceration. What I mean by that is they'll go from juvenile facilities to adult jails to adult prisons. That's what you put them on a trajectory. But if you can address them from a mental health perspective, you may be able to change that trajectory. And that kid could be put on a course to college or to military or some other career component that could stabilize them in the community, and they become a more productive member of society. But instead, our system is to, well, I'm gonna say the judicial system is to incarcerate. Let the system figure it out. That's kind of, that's kind of bogus when you think about
And if there are adverse childhood experiences taking place, and then they go into an institution to be incarcerated, that environment will add to their stress, their trauma. And as you said, and that increases the risk for more incarceration and more mental health obstacles, mental health issues.
Yeah, and it's my problem is why hasn't this been figured out yet? You know what I'm saying? What is the problem? We consistently say that, okay, we need these programs and we're putting these programs out here. And then, even in putting programs out here, community-based programs, there are some fiduciaries who make it so difficult that, even the program says, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, man. I don't see anything that's happening because you are making it too difficult for me to even operate so that I can help these young people. So now you put me in a place where I'm like, oh man, I'm at a place where I don't know, and that's only in the Black community. I don't see that much in the white community, and I'm being realistic, man, because I do a lot of research and I pull a lot of data, and I see that more often in the Black community than any other community that exists in this continental United States. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's unfortunate and that's sad that we consistently find ourselves at this place. But yet they say we're free in this country. Yet they say we're equal in this country. But yet we still have status quo that treat us as we're subservient.
Yes.
It's ridiculous, man. It's not making any sense to me, man. And then you have a lot of these brothers and sisters, people who look like me, who find themselves on the opposite side with the individuals agreeing with them and helping them to further oppress us. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. And I get kind of frustrated sometimes, man, with all the stuff I see in the community. I can remember there was a time when I was destructive in my own community, to my own self and to my own people. I can remember that, but I conclude that it was because I was blind and ignorant and didn't really understand the damage that I was doing in our community. If we can open up a window for many of our young people and many of our young adults, so that they can see how destructive they are in their own community and see the damage that they're doing, not only to their community, but to themselves and those who are coming behind them. Maybe they'll change their direction. But if we consistently not put anything in place to redirect them, we're going to always find ourselves at a disadvantage. And even when they give us things to put in place, because fiduciaries will give you money, but then they'll make it so difficult for you, you don't even want to do it anymore. You're like, man, I don't even want that money, man, because it's too much of a headache, And what we have to do is we have to continue to try to move forward, man. Hey, we're going to close out one part of the show, man, and we're going to keep going with this podcast so that people can get a little bit more of what we're trying to give them. So we're going to close out for, hey, man, for those who are on WRNE, man, those who are listening to Talkback through Choice 106.9, hey, man, I want to thank you and say God bless you, and I love you. I'll see you next week. Peace. But, yeah. So we find ourselves at this place where we're trying to navigate, man. I mean, man, listen, as an agency, my organization out here in this community, man, I've been working for a while. I ain't the perfect agency, I ain't the best agency and all of that stuff, but we work hard. We work tremendously hard out here in our community so that we can bring something different. And in that, we have fiduciaries. And no doubt, you got to go to fiduciaries to get the help that you need to help others in the community. Man, that's just simple, man. It's simple theology. But there are so many things that work against us in this community. And I'm talking about the Black us. There are so many people that work against us in these communities, man. I just don't get it sometimes. We have to work together in our community, man, in order to make this thing work better. I mean, I'm gonna call out the black agencies, man, and I'm hoping they are listening, and I hope they, conclude, hey, man, we do got to work together. Don't call me and talk like you want to work together, but in reality, you really don't. And what you do is sit around and talk about another agency and talk about what they ain't doing or what they can do better and all that, instead of calling the director or the CEO up and say, hey, man, let me see if I can come over. Let's talk a little bit about this. I ain't gonna tell you what to do, but I'm gonna show you this is what we do and this is how we operate. I've had some brothers who call that, but do they follow up? Do they come through? Do they actually show up, or do they actually call you back and say, okay? And do you call them back and say, hey, man, if I need this, yeah, man, I need this help. Come on over and give me some help. But if you don't, whose fault is it, man? I know one thing: we're losing our youth, man. And as we continue to move forward, we're gonna continue to lose our youth. Those youth turn into young adults. Those young adults turn into parents. Those parents turn into grandparents. And if all of them are misled, what happens to us as a community, as a whole? What happens to us? There's a lot of things going on. I'm talking about right here in Pensacola. We got voting coming up. Are we going to put people back in the office that are going to actually have some legislation, or at least, yeah. Go ahead, dude. Go ahead. I'm good, dude.
Hey, I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Because you know what? I never knew Benjamin Banneker created the clock
Yeah.
that goes for what? Yeah, 50 days.
Almost 50 years. Nah, almost 50 years.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I thought he was just an engineer here at Washington, D.C.
Nah, he built the clock. Yes,
So
sir.
he was in business, so you couldn't stop that brother anyway.
You could not stop him, brother. That's a fact. So
I
yeah,
appreciate you, bro. Hey, like you say, they are on attack of our children.
they are.
And see what they lose at the school board, they get it in the prison.
That's right.
Not the student, but the system.
Yes.
Because the system probably make more of them being in prison because they gotta house them than they do off the school system.
They do.
They gotta remember a lot of these prisons are corporate owned.
Yes, they are.
That way. Like over in Liberia and Angola and Louisiana, where they voted recently to keep prison leasing.
Yes.
Well, if that don't encourage slavery, you tell me what does.
I'm telling you, man, it does. And I don't think sometimes we see it, Dooley. I mean, we've come into these contemporary times. We are distracted with this technology that we can hold in our hands, and we forgot about the world is still turning, you know?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Mr. B.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Hey, man, thank you for calling me.
I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, brother Dooley. I appreciate you, my brother. That's a fact. So, yeah, Pete, man, you know, it's unfortunate that we find ourselves at this place in this contemporary time. We got more youth who are committing suicide. We had a youth who committed suicide here about maybe a month ago here in this city, but that's just one we heard about. We got youth who are killing each other. We got youth who are killing their grandparents. We got youth who are killing their girlfriends in stores, and we got all of this stuff going on, but yet we don't have a lot of help for them. And even with the agencies out here, I'm just being honest, man, the fiduciary of these agencies stifle them so much that many of them are afraid to do anything. Like, man, I'm getting to where I just don't even want the money. I know I needed to help more people, but, you know, I don't think the headache is worth it, you know, sometimes. So they wonder why when agencies get out of here, especially black agencies, they scrutinize black agencies more than any agency in this community. If you give a black agency, if you see a black agency get some money, you bet $100 to a Snickers bar, they're going to scrutinize the hell out that agency. That's a fact. That's just how they do black people. And then they have the audacity to say, no, we do everybody like that. But the truth of the matter is, it's not happening for everybody. You can go through and do your own investigation and conclude that's not happening. And so now you say we're doing things to help our community, but are you really? Are you really helping us resolve these issues? You know?
So basically, what you're telling me when you provided the statistics on incarceration and you provided how they navigate the youth in the system where they make it so difficult and so narrow that we have high incarceration rates for these youth. And then you're talking to me about, you mentioned these agencies and these agencies who many of them have been doing the work for a very long time and have their finger on the pulse of the community that they serve. You say they make it difficult for these agencies to do the work. These agencies strategically and can surgically do this work because, again, they have their fingers on the pulse. But what you're telling me or what you just told us was that they make it difficult. So what we're seeing is layers of purposeful, premeditated ways to impede the growth and process of people of color on all levels that we socialize in.
Yeah.
You know, there's a concerted effort, systematic, on multiple levels. How do we combat this, and how can we come together to combat this?
Well, it is first and foremost, man. We have to understand that there has our community, and I'm talking about the Black community. We've been placed in a situation where we've been separated, and that was by design. It was by design to keep us separated. We came together for brief moments in history. If you see that, I'm talking about since the slavery era. After that, during the slavery era, we were separated, and we were in fact trained to think differently towards each other, so that the master could always be pleased in a particular manner. You know what I'm saying? So that he would always get his way. And in that theology has matriculated with us. There has been brief moments of time where we have worked together as a people. There has been, you can look at the civil rights movement. That was a collective group. They even try to make us think it was just Dr. King out there. Even when you look at Brother Malcolm, you know, they make us think it was just him. It's because of the narratives that they create and try to make us think that, hey man, you know, there was a collective movement during the civil rights movement. It wasn't just Dr. King out there. There were many other people who helped Dr. King. He was a voice and he was a spokesman for the movement. And he was somebody that people could gravitate to and gravitate around. He couldn't do all that by himself, man. So we have to understand, man, there was a narrative created. And now we move into this contemporary time, and we bit into the narrative, and we're more separated now than ever before. And so if we don't come together, if we don't work together, don't come to me when you get in trouble, man. Now you're in trouble. Now you want to work with me. Now you want to help me, and now you want to do all. Let's say, hey, man, let's work together before it's any foolishness or anything. Let's come together corporately, man. And if we do, I think we can resolve a greater number of our own issues.
100%. And this knowledge and this information that you provide on your show regularly, we need people to take heed. We don't necessarily want them to. We're not asking you to do a whole bunch of research. We're providing the information. I'm not saying that you don't go out on your own and you don't have to take our word for it. Do your own research. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we need to see these different layers of manipulation. And we need to come together to combat these different layers of manipulation, because, as you said, we have children killing their grandmothers. What is this telling us? This is telling us that this crisis is affecting us intergenerationally. We are imploding, so to speak, as a family unit, as a community. You know.
Yes, we are.
You mentioned the '60s when we came together. It seems that there was a certain type of unification in the '60s. there was there's no imploding. But now it seems as though we are imploding. You know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The enemy is no longer without. The enemy is becoming within, and we need to nip that in the bud sooner than later.
Yeah, we do, man. And you know, the unfortunate thing is we're not doing that, man. And I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, but we got to get back to doing something. We got to get back to putting in work and all of that stuff, man. Otherwise, we find ourselves at a disadvantage more often than not. We got something on our hands now. They're still consistently incarcerating our youth. Our youth are suffering from mental health issues that are not being addressed holistically. In school, they're kicking them out of schools. They're not saying, okay, this kid has an issue. He just ain't angry all the time. Something got to be going on. He just ain't doing this all the time. Is somebody delving into that and seeing why is he having these issues all the time? Why is he angry all the time? Why does he want to fight all the time? Why is he disruptive all the time? Why she can't sit down? Why she did, you know, we're not delving into what the real problem may be, but instead we're taking the easy way out, but yet we say we love our children. We're sending them to the man with the lock and key, kicking them out of school, or we sending them to alternative schools and all of these things where they're trying to hoard our kids into without addressing the issues, without addressing the true issues. They're doing the same thing when it comes to societal norms. The norm in society is to lock them up and find out what's going on later. That's what's going on. They're locking our young people up, and maybe later they're finding out, okay, this is the issue. This is what's going on. But nevertheless, we're going to still lock you up. I'm going to still send you to a penitentiary. I'm going to still send you to a juvenile facility or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to say, well, I think you need some professional help. I think you need to see a mental health counselor, or you need to see an anger management counselor, or you need some type of residential substance abuse treatment. I'm not going to incarcerate you. I'm going to give you the help you need. When does humanity start being humane? When it comes to African American people. When does humanity start becoming humane? When it comes to African American people. And everybody has their 2 cents, but everybody's not pulling the statistics and seeing this large number of individuals who are being incarcerated, and the greatest number of all those incarcerated are of Black people. Something has to be wrong with that. Something has to be wrong with that. It does. It would tweak my curiosity. You know, researchers would say, let's research more. Let's find out more. If they go to the South Pole and they find out that the polar bear population is shrinking, they're disappearing, they'll say, hey man, we need to do some research. We need to find out why the polar bear population is shrinking at the South Pole. We need to understand, is it their habitat? Is it their diet? Is it predators? They would do that. I mean, that would be normal for them. If they see something happen to a population, whether it's human beings or if it's animals, insects, plants, or whatever the case, most of the time they would research. You have a population of people who are getting cancer in a particular area. They'll research to find out, hey man, why all these people got cancer and the same type of cancer? And all of them live in this geographic location, but not only this geographic location, to be more specific, they live in this particular community. Would they do that? They would do that. But I don't know.
They would do that. And these gatekeepers are the master of statistical information.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So again, to your point.
Yeah.
Is this not a subject worthy of investigation?
It is, man. I know we don't have time to get in it today, man, but I just wanted to share my sentiments on this 28th day of February, in which they deem a Black History Month. that we would. I just want people to just research. If you're a black person, one, you should know your history. You should know that you are the inventors of language. People have tricked you and convinced you that you are not. Therefore, we find ourselves at this place where a greater majority of us are now illiterate. We're not able to read adequately or even at all, some of us, here in these contemporary times. We're in 2024. And you got to think the Egyptians or the African Egyptians, people have, made us so confused that we think Egypt is not even in Africa. We've been so perplexed and so bamboozled and hoodwinked and run them up and led astray to people. Black people don't even know that Egypt is in Africa.
Yes, it is.
People don't know that.
And that the ancient Egyptians, in many ways, do not look like the Egyptians we see today. They were the ancient Egyptians were darker in many cases.
Yeah.
Even though there was mix and there was a communication and trade taking place, our ancient Egyptians had broad noses.
Yeah, man. So they didn't know that. But I wanted to bring a little something on this Black History in this thing we call Black History Month on this 28th day of February. At least say something in regards to Black history. So I want people to understand historically, we have been attacked as people. Historically, we have been oppressed by people. Historically, we have been economically deprived, and unfortunately, that is still happening today. So understand your history, understand what's going on in these contemporary times, and start working towards solutions to make it better. With that being said, man, I want you to know that at NWB Hoops, we're at 2112 West Young Street, man. We provide individual mental health counseling. We provide group counseling, family counseling, and couples counseling. We provide anger management. We have a licensed practitioner on site. We have a certified anger management specialist on site, trained in EMDR, that's eye movement desensitizing and reprocessing, trained in EI, emotional intelligence. We also have a host of individual staff members who are able to help you if you need to be connected to any of the wraparound services like financial literacy, parenting, health and wellness, job coaching. If we can even refer to housing and food. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you know somebody that's in need, if you have a young person that may be struggling, if they're between the ages of 12 and 18, please come by our location at 2112 West Young Street, or give us a call at 850-607-3252, man, and check us out. Hey, this is your man by town, Mr. Rodney Jones, and my partner in crime, Mr. Paul Cook Edwards.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. So I want to say peace, man, and goodwill to all.
Peace and goodwill.
Talk with you later.